start with you, Ramez. What are your initial thoughts on how this fight could play out?
Yeah, there's a lot that can happen in this fight. I think Dubois probably hits as equally as hard as AJ. I think AJ has more tools in his box when it comes to combination punching, setting up his shots. I don't want to sound like I'm hating with Dubois here. I think he's done exceptionally well. I think out of the 5v5 going into it, I thought the Dubois Hergovich was the easiest to call, and that was going against Dubois, so he's done exceptionally well. I do think Joshua goes through him within the first 6, though. I do think Dubois has a few holds. I think Hergovich showed that quite early and sort of puffed himself out. So I do think Joshua's a massive favourite in that one. I think it'll be a shootout for as long as it lasts, though.
It will indeed. And Ayman, just briefly, what are your initial thoughts on it before we go?
Yeah, just my initial thoughts are that a lot of people kind of writing off Dubois' chances straight off with it. And I get it because of AJ's Olympic success, AJ's success in big nights, big fights, big Wembley fights as well, too. And I get that. But I feel like Dubois isn't going to be the same Dubois that we've seen in the past. I think he's answered a lot of questions. He won't be the same Dubois either from the Hergovich fight. I don't think he'll take that form of himself into AJ. And these two know each other very, very well. So lots still there for a potential upset success for Dubois. Don't write him off. AJ is their favourite. I'd be favouring AJ, but not writing off Dubois at all.
Now, before I go to the chat, and I should point out, we're not only live on YouTube right now, we're also live on TikTok. Get us, we're so cool, modern, and hip. And Ayman Khan will be monitoring the chat from that platform. But I'll just get onto YouTube in a minute. But we are going to put the poll out nice and early, as we've been quite good at that in recent weeks. It's a very simple one this time. Joshua versus Dubois, should it happen, of course. Who wins and how? So you've got the main, 4 options. No draws here. So you've got no chance of a 22-1 or a cheeky tenner. However, we've got Joshua KO or points, Dubois KO or points. Let us know what you think in the poll, and we'll give you the results at the end of the show. Now, just going into the chat, I can see there's a huge number of people watching this week. So thank you all for tuning in. If it is your first time, please do give Seconds Out a subscribe and give us a thumbs up if you haven't already. Hello Fresh says Dubois has a puncher's chance. Fizz says Dubois can't lace up Manuel Char's boots. I hope that's meant ironically, or that it's Fizz from Coronation Street, one of the two. Let me go back. Who is Manuel Char, says Hello Fresh. Very good. MB says, I'm well up for the AJ versus Dubois fight. It's competitive. Arnold Jerjai says, can you make Ben weight Flexen? What is Ben weight? We're talking about Conor Ben? Nigel Ben? Big Ben? Definitely make Big Ben weight. Monola Nuguetzi says, I feel sorry for Dubois. He is not an opponent for AJ. Yeah, I've seen a few people saying similar stuff to that recently. I know Ramez might fall in line with those views. We shall see. Christopher H says, Dubois defends with his face. Suicide against the puncher. Andre Newby says Deontay Wilder had beef with his something and brother. I don't really understand that one completely. My emoji game's not strong, Andre. DB Cooper 1. The fact they only want to fight Dubois if there's a title on the line says a lot. PTSD from the sparring days. We will talk about the sparring in due course. Nat says, I Googled Flexen's boxing video. I found it. Kind of wish I hadn't. Not loving the pad work or the dark hair. Yeah, well, what do you think turned my hair grey in the first place? It was the humiliation of videos like that. Activist Book says AJ is miles above Dubois, but should be a good fight. Jerjai continues, Dubois has taken the fights AJ should have at this point in his career. Dubois has fought Joyce, Usyk, Hergovich at a time when AJ was still fighting stiffs, even though he was coming off being an Olympic champion. Yeah, I've never really thought about that before, but I think that's quite a valid point. Similar stages of their career, who's tested themselves more. DB Cooper 1 says, and I've noticed this too, DB Cooper 1, someone needs to mute themselves whilst others are talking. So I'm guessing that's probably Ramez as he's new to the show, but Ramez, you might need to mute your microphone as unless you're talking.
Okay.
Sorry, mate. DB Cooper 1's called you out. He's done it to all of us. It's a rite of passage. Hayden Garin Duchesne says, has to be Dubois, doesn't it? Or Zhang. I certainly don't want to see Joshua Parker again. Jackie Boy Johnson says, Hergovich underestimated Dubois. Joshua won't. Now, before we get into some of those angles, Ayman, have you got anything from the fine folks at TikTok?
Yeah, people are just filtering in right now, seeing that we're live on TikTok. If you haven't already, give us a follow on TikTok and all our social media platforms as well. And like us on Spotify too. No less than 5 stars will do, said a certain sooth-talking Steve Wellings back in the day. Yeah, it is a Nicola line from him. The comments that we've got here are, first of all, from Wu-Tang Forever. Hergovich landed 56 clean right hands against Dubois. Against AJ, he goes sleep. AJ unified the division by this time in Dubois' career. So he's mapping out the two careers, comparing the two, and he's got AJ a very steep favorite against Dubois. More comments coming soon when you go back to me, Danny. That's what we've got at the moment right now.
So let's go into a couple of those comments. And I think the one that really caught me was the one towards the end about similar stages of their career, Dubois being tested a lot harder. And I think that's valid considering AJ was, while an inexperienced amateur, had come off a world championship final that he lost and a win in the Olympic final. And Dubois never really fought much as a senior, predominantly as a junior, got signed up early on by Frank Warren. I talked to his dad about that actually when we did the interview. But has fought arguably stiffer opposition, and he's got more to lose. Even though he's young, you know, if he was to lose, coming off the Joyce defeat, if he was to lose again, you know, Usyk, you can take a loss from Usyk. He's world champion, excellent fighter. But, you know, if he'd have lost either of the last two to Jarrell Miller or to Hergovich, it might have been game over for Dubois early on. He might never have been able to recover from that. So, Ayman, we'll start with you on this one. What do you make of that comparison? Has Dubois been more battle-tested at a similar stage of their career?
Yeah, I mean, I get that to a degree. I mean, in early of AJ's career, they were just kind of showcasing him really. I think I remember my first ever fight going to wasn't a great card. I got to give Eddie some criticism for that, as I usually do. It was setting up for a collision course between Bellew and Cleverly, the rematch. And I went mainly because Anthony Joshua was on that undercard. I remember seeing him coming through, and he's built like an Adonis back then, and you could see he was destined for greatness. And that's what they were doing back in the day. They were taking AJ to different places, showing him around to the UK off of the back of the Olympic success and trying to build his star. Dubois didn't quite have that. He was a jewel in Queensbury. He is, a jewel in the Queensbury crown for sure, but he hasn't had that kind of that train going, hyping him up as much as AJ had. Two different complete contrasts of how they both made it to, well, or Dubois is trying to make it to that position. And I think there's a lot to be said to that because Frank knows how to match a talent, and they pretty much got it right with Dubois, barring Joyce fight, but they didn't really have anywhere to go at that point, and they had to kind of put him in that fight there anyway. Joyce was a bit of a bar for him at that point. He just showed that he wasn't ready. I wonder now how that would go if the two had a rematch now, considering where their careers have gone. But no, I do get that with Dubois, but I think they've understood, and a lot of people talk about Dubois and his temperament, his mentality, the type of character he is. And I think they've understood who Dubois is as a person, and they've known that you can't just throw this guy in. Whereas with AJ, I think his mentality is just to go for it. Eddie Hearn has always kind of just said, look, he's happy to fight anyone, and they've just gone for it. And I think that's what they've had to do. They had to just mold it a little bit to get Dubois ready to be one of these guys to take the baton off of AJ once he sails off into the sunset. Didn't think that Dubois might actually get the opportunity to wrest that baton from AJ himself.